The New York City preseason roster is out, and two important signings over the last week. That and much more on NYCFC Views.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. NYCFC Views.
Collins approaches the shot, and New York City wins the first MLS Cup on their first try, and they're going crazy. Tiene el tiro y gol! Gol! New York City es el campeón de Major League Soccer.
The sickest New York City FC podcast. It's gonna be sick.
Welcome back, everyone, and certainly the sick part of the Sick Podcast appropriate today as I'm carrying a little bit of a cold that I brought back from Anaheim and the National Coaches Convention, but I'm feeling fine. I've got my cough button ready, and I was going to say something like this will give Roberto more of a chance to chime in today and speak, but that's normally the case anyway, so I don't think anything will really change. I'm Glenn Crooks, Roberto Abramowitz here as well. And Roberto, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. I did really well. So as we all know, we spoke about it last week. I had a issue last year, which is now taken care of, and everything seems to be going very, very well. So I'm really happy. And then on top of that, I got COVID about 2 weeks ago. So I had that for about a week because everybody in New York seems to have it. And I had a slight cough for about 2-3 days. It was intense for a few hours overnight a couple of times. And then after that, it was fine. I really, nothing at all. Didn't need Paxlovid or anything like that. It helps to be in good shape otherwise. So, and probably also because of the fact that, I have all the vaccines except for the last one, which I was going to take last week, but then I got COVID. So now I can't really take it for another, 3-4 months. So, and then I'll catch up. But I'm good. I'm really good. I feel great.
The weekly Roberto Abramowitz health update, and but
oh my God.
Great. But you look great, and you're improving each week, so that's what's really important. So I just want to share a photo from the convention. I did 18 interviews, and I moderated 2 panels. Now the 2 people here are have a connection to New York City FC. The guy next to me, he's on the left, as you can see. That's Dr. Kerry Boldy. He was the head of coach support for the City Football Group. He's one of the reasons why Nick Cushing is part of the New York City staff. He brought in Cushing and Dyla together. When I say he brought them in, what Kerry did, and we talked about it on this interview for SiriusXM, is his responsibility was to always have on the ready coaches to plug in so that the methodology and the system could remain the same within all the City Football Group teams. I've known him for quite some time. Really an interesting guy to talk to, and for the first time, actually was able to meet with him socially a little bit. And the young lady to my left and to the right as you're looking at it, Carly Lloyd. Carly played for Nick Cushing at Manchester City, and she played for me at Rutgers University. Had a nice chat with Carly as well. Talked about some of her comments, which caused so much disdain on social media recently. So we'll go over that too.
Which ones? Because she seems to do that often.
Well, she's a Jersey girl who has an opinion. And the one thing how I compliment Carly all the time, especially now that she's doing this studio stuff, is so often in the past, the former U.S. national team players would be put in those positions and would be reluctant to be critical of their former teammates, because they were friends. And I love the fact that Carly, I don't know if she's sustained all these friendships, but she says what she thinks. And to be honest, and I will go on record also saying, I agree with just about everything she says. So,
and that's the way it should be. We see that a lot with coaches, by the way, when they're on television. It's a fraternity. And you'll never see coaches really criticize coaches, be it the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, whatever it is. You never see that. And so they're protected. They'll criticize players, but they'll never really criticize coaches. It's very rare when you see that, when coaches are, doing shows, be it on ESPN, Fox, or wherever.
All right, so that was the convention. It was pretty cool. You've been there, Roberto.
Yeah, I missed it this year. I'm really bummed about it. I really wanted to go, but it was going to be impossible after the heart attack and quadruple bypass and all of that. And it was better for me to stay home and take it easy and relax and get healthy. So I'll miss it this year. Where's next year's? Is it coming back east?
Well, it's getting closer to the east. It's going to be in Chicago. So, yeah.
Oh, that's not bad. I love
No,
Chicago. Not this
bad.
week, but have you seen what's going on in Chicago this week? Have you seen like the photos of the weather over there? It is insane.
All right. Well, it's not till next year we're going, so hopefully it'll recover by then. Although I guess we'll be there. I don't know what our schedule is this year in terms of going to Chicago. I can't remember. But let's get to this. So before we get to the roster, which was just released this morning out in preseason, which is in Tampa at the beginning, and eventually we'll move to Indio, California for Coachella. Couple of signings, and they appear to be very important. I mean, the first one is if there's a guy that helped boss the midfield. Remember, New York City had a good final stretch to the season. It's unfortunate that prior to that, there was a 17-game stretch where it was very difficult to get results. But Andres Perea, finally, we knew it was going on. Jim Curtin was the really only one that said publicly, yeah, we're trying to work a deal out with New York City, Jim Curtin, the Philadelphia coach. And finally, a deal was cracked. So the guy that was on loan, he's now a permanent member of New York City for $650,000 GAM, which could escalate to $800,000 depending on incentives. We don't know what the incentives are, but if it's playing time, I'm sure he'll reach that incentive.
Yeah.
So that's a huge first signing.
I mean, since he arrived in New York City, I mean, he started every game, I believe, except one. I think the Chicago Fire game. I'm trying to see over here if he started that game or not, or just left early. But he only played 30 minutes in that game. No, he came on. It was, he didn't start. So that's the only that's the only game. And I mean, the minute he came in, he showed exactly what he could do. Very good offensive. He's good with the ball. Has good vision. The team just looks stronger. He's not afraid to take a shot. I really liked him. I thought that he gave New York a stronger midfield at that point. And obviously Nick Cushie must have thought the same thing because he basically never took him out of the lineup. He got a chance to play.
There's no thinking about it.
Yeah,
he was their best midfielder during the time he got a chance to play full time. I don't think it was even close.
Yeah, and so he wanted to stay. He made it obvious that he wanted to stay. The team wanted him, but originally in the original loan deal that they had, which was just for the end of the season, there was a no buy clause. It was, normally you get a player on loan and then there's a buy clause. This one didn't have one. So they had to, so the better Perea played, the more expensive he became. And the more New York City wanted him, Philadelphia was like, all right, let's go. Count that cash. Let's go. And then they got a pretty good sum for him. But I think New York City obviously gets the better of the deal because he played really, really well. He's going to really help New York City's midfield from the beginning, as long as he stays healthy.
Well, and now you look at the personnel that are currently in camp, and we'll get to the full roster. James Sands is with the U.S. men's national team. They'll play against Slovenia on January 20th. Hopefully he and Micha Ilinic, who's also going to be around for that game on the Slovenia side, hopefully they get a chance to go at it a little bit. But the midfield. So let's just take James Sands, Keaton Parks, Andres Perea, Maxi Morales when he's fit, but Santi Rodriguez at the start. Is he going to be an attacking midfielder? Is he going to be a winger? So who sits in that scenario? And I don't think you don't talk about a rotation between Keaton Parks, who's on the verge of extending his deal with New York City FC, perhaps. It seems to be in line now that he's not going to depart, and Sands, who's going to recover from what was a pretty difficult season for him, not up to his standard. I think he'd admit that. And now Perea, or do you play a midfield like that without a 10? Because the 10 is becoming less instrumental, it seems, in football. Yeah, unless you have Lucho Acosta. a player like
Right.
that. So
they might go with a 4-3-3 for a while, but if you're playing a 4-3-3, then how do you line them up? Who are you putting down to the side? You leave Sands in the middle and you put Parks on one side and Fede on the other, or do you?
Twin eight. I'm answering your question. Sands sits as the 6, and Perea and Parks play twin 8s, which
It's
gives them
a little bit of a triangle. So it winds up being a little bit of a triangle anyway.
Yeah. So
that'll be do that. That makes a lot of sense.
We should let everybody know Nick Cushing will be speaking to the press, which includes us, on Friday morning. I think it's 11 a.m. Eastern, and then I'll be sure to tweet out, and I'm sure you will too, Roberto, some of his thoughts. But that's certainly a question: is the midfield for New York City? It's flexibility. We understand that. That's important to a coach. But you got 3 guys that have to log a lot of minutes, you would assume. And how is he going to do that? All right. The other guy we don't know. Competition. Nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. For all the people that think that everybody comes to MLS for a vacation and, they don't put in the work, that they're here to get paid and all of that. No. You're competing. You want to go and you want to play. And that means that you got to bust your butt in practice and then show the coach that you deserve the minutes. I mean, nobody is guaranteed minutes except for Messi, I would think.
Well, I would think. Then the other addition so far, and will there be more? We assume there will be, but Hannes Wolf, he's an Austrian coming from the Bundesliga, Mönchengladbach, where Joe Scally is, the former New York City homegrown. And he is a competition. He's going to be part of the competition on the wing, we would assume. That's where he has spent most of his career, on the left and right side. And the interesting thing here, Roberto, Kerry Boldy, bringing him up, he knows this kid well, and he thinks it's a good acquisition. I trust Kerry and his judgment on that. But the guy hasn't played a competitive match since May the 27th, and a lot of that has been due to injury. I don't want to say he's injury prone, but he's dealt with a meniscus tear that he had surgery on, and an injury prior to that, a soft tissue injury. But this is from the Gladbach managing director, a quote. And Hannes never made the mark that he and the club had expected him to make at Gladbach. So that's one of the reasons, that he was dispatched by them and made available to New York City. And of course, he's trying to make his mark now in MLS. And I think he'll be very motivated to. Those are the kind of comments. If I were a player and I saw that, it would add a little bit to the motivation. Plus, now he's in a competitive arena here where there are a lot of quality wingers for New York City FC, and including Tylus Magno on his side. Although we've seen things about Magno which certainly haven't been confirmed, or I don't know if you've heard anything more than those couple of tweets.
No, I haven't. But the rumors are out there that there's interest in Europe and in Brazil for Magno, and we'll see if he wants to go and if the team wants to sell him. So there's 2 different things that go. Normally, if a player wants to go, New York City has been very good about taking care of that and doing that for them. But, we'll have to see what goes on. We know that it was a very tough season for Tylus Magno. He finished stronger than he started, or in the middle. At least he had that going for him. But he's just such a talented player that so far hasn't lived up to the expectations. It's been in spurts only, sadly, and we haven't seen him fully mature yet as a player and take that ability and take it, to the next level. Right now, we're trying to get him, or the team is trying to get him to play at his level all the time. And it's been, a little bit of a roller coaster for him. He finished strong, which was nice to see. But there was a while where he was in the doghouse. He couldn't get off the bench at New York City. He couldn't get off the bench at all. So, hopefully he's gotten better. He's matured. And if he stays here, then, hopefully he plays to the level we expect him to play at. And if he goes, then, we wind up wishing him the best. I want to just say something about Wolf. Okay. So Wolf's last game was May 27th, and he played 19 minutes in that game. He came in as a sub. It wasn't like he started, he got hurt. After that, he had injuries and didn't wind up playing again. And he only had like sporadic, appearances, 5 minutes against Werder Bremen, 21 minutes against Wolfsburg, 2 games in a row where he didn't play, 6 against Stuttgart, 9 against Bochum. The most he had was on May 13th, 45 minutes against Borussia Dortmund, didn't play the next game, and then only 19 against Augsburg, which was his last game. His last start, Glenn, was February 23rd. I mean, by the time the New York City season starts, it'll be a full year between starts for him, if he even starts. So
if you're looking at transfer market, I was looking at the same thing. Go back to that Dortmund game. I'm pretty sure he started that game and just played the first half, which is only
that might be.
Yeah,
let me see if he started.
Because I was looking for that. I was looking for that too.
Yes, he did start. Okay, right. So I'm sorry. I apologize. I figured it was I didn't look at it. I figured it was a sub. So yes, he played that. So okay, so he started twice in 1 year.
Well, that's
thank you.
That's more a fact. That is really, it's really and that's there's a significance to his lack of playing time, in as much as his readiness to jump in and compete on a full-time basis for New York City. He's not in. He's not even on the training camp preseason roster yet because of the visa that he has to acquire in order to come in, and they're not going to list him on the roster until he arrives. So he can't come in and train or do anything with the team. So he's going to be behind. So I think the anticipation is, can they get him in time to be fit enough to play in those 3 Coachella matches between February 7th and February 14th? That would be good, because then the season starts soon thereafter.
I was looking at his career numbers and where he's been. All the clubs have been pretty decent clubs. So he's Borussia Mönchengladbach. Before that, he was at Swansea, where he played 19 games and scored 2 goals. That was on loan. And then before that, he was on Leipzig. He was on Salzburg. And he started his career with a team called Liefering, which I can't say I've ever heard of before. But, I mean, he started out really well there. I mean, 35 games, 7 goals. And then when he went to Salzburg, 23 goals in 89 games. So you look at those numbers and you're like, okay, so what's happened since? And, is it a situation where he just needs a fresh start with a new coach and maybe a new system, and that re-energizes him and gets him back to where he was? Because obviously, he was a pretty decent goal scorer if he's scoring a little bit more than once every 3 games, which isn't, terrible for a wing.
Yeah, new system. So it will be interesting to see how New York City goes about everything this year. They do have some changes. One thing I do know, and I don't know the gentleman's name, but he's worked with under Marcelo Bielsa at a time during his career, also at Leeds United. But Daniel Fradley, we've talked about him, the top analyst for New York City, left and now is in charge of the City Football Group and all the satellite teams in that area, the analysis side of things. But they have the club has hired this gentleman who's worked with Bielsa. So I'm anxious to hear a little bit more about him. So they do have an analyst who, that's become such a massive role in preparation for everything that you do, training the opponent. And we know
I'd love to pick his brain after working with Bielsa and what Bielsa wants. I mean, Bielsa is somebody who's just like soccer 24 hours a day. It's like soccer, food, go to the bathroom, soccer, food, go to the bathroom. I mean, that's it. Right. It's amazing. So I'd love to see, what that was like. Because I'm a Bielsa fan.
Oh, well, me too. And it remains to be seen too. I know Kleberson is gone. We're not sure where. There was somebody I interviewed at the convention who worked in the Philadelphia Union Academy and was asking me about Kleberson. I said, well, I really don't know where he went. So we're not sure.
He's back in Brazil. I think he's back in Brazil.
Well, let's not assume that, because
I've
heard otherwise that he might still be in the States somewhere. So let's just hold off on this. But I'm not sure. I'm not going to mention it until we know for 100%. But as far as I can tell, New York City still has a vacancy on their coaching staff, unless they've until we get a chance
applied?
to talk to Nick. I have not
Have you
applied.
Oh.
I'm very busy producing, not producing, but putting together things for NYCFC Views. How could I have time for that?
Oh, well, okay. I get that then.
I have looked into, I think, I hope this is not a premature announcement, but I'm encouraged that for U.S. club soccer, they have something called ID2. There's, I think I'm going to have a chance to get back into the game a little bit more and do something there, which could be both coaching and scouting. So that's pending. And a good friend of mine who runs the show there, I'm hoping that we can figure something out. But so it won't be New York City FC. Their loss. Thank you, Roberto, for the plug.
You're welcome. I don't know if New York City is going to thank me, but
No,
I'm trying.
Of course, that's tongue in cheek here on the Sick Podcast. Hey, let's see that preseason roster, Shane. Throw it up there, dude.
Let's see what we got.
There it is. Well, you see Alex Rando up there. That was one of the announcements over the last couple of weeks, and then we felt that probably Cody Mizell was going to depart. Indeed, that has happened. And he's going to rejoin Troy Lesane at DC United and become the goalkeeper coach. He played for Lesane at New Mexico United, the Cody Mizell. We got a chance to know him on the road, especially Roberto, great guy, and glad he found a home like that. The first name I want to bring up, and then I'll leave it to you, is the 15-year-old homegrown Zidane Yanez, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
That's you're not even close. You want to try again?
No, just say it.
Okay, it's Zidane Yanez. The N is an N.
I was close. I said Yanez, and you said Yanez.
Well, there's a big difference between Yanez and Yanez. So let's see. So the difference between having the N and the Enye. Okay, so ANO, for instance, I'm going to give you a little Spanish lesson here. Okay, and listen closely because you'll be quizzed on this at some point. ANO and ANO. Okay. ANO is año, right? Which, like they say, Feliz Año Nuevo, Happy New Year. Right. ANO, without the little tilde on top of the N, means butthole, anus.
Awesome.
That's why it's Yanez and not Yanez. Yanez. And it should have an accent on the A, too, by the way. Okay. Yanez. Well, it's like N-I, it's almost like N-I-E, Yanez, that sort of thing. That's the way you pronounce it. I should have picked up on
that. I know. And what do you call that?
Okay. No, this isn't just you. I mean, this is 99% of America does not know this stuff.
What is that called? What's that called over the Z? A tilde?
The N.
Or the N?
I believe it's a tilde. Yeah. Tilde or tilde. All
right, let's go back.
My Spanish gets confused.
Let's go back to the picture of the kid Zidane, who he had his first interview with New York City. It's up on a website, and his father spoke. But the answer to the question I have, was he named after Zidane, the French international star? And there's been no absolute confirmation of that. The thing the father said in the welcome video was that people expected him to play soccer because his name was Zidane, but it wasn't like we named him Zidane because of Zidane. So
the funny thing is that it's so basically he's got two last names. He's got two last names because Zidane's first name is Zinedine. So it's not Zinedine Yanez, it's Zidane Yanez, which is interesting.
Yeah, that is. Well, look, the kid turned 16 on January 26th, and I think the most interesting part of this kid, well, he's got a great smile, and he's of Chilean, Puerto Rican, and American descent. Right now, he can play for 3 countries, and he has. Well, he's competed for the U15s in Chile, the U15s in Puerto Rico, and he's been to a U16 U.S. Youth National Camp, but hasn't competed yet for the U16. So along the way, depending on his effectiveness, he's got a decision to make. But isn't that wonderful? I guess I don't know the absolute rules on this, but it sounds like he'll be able to just compete with 3 different countries on the youth national team level at his whim.
Pretty much.
That's
pretty
wild.
much. And then at some point he's got to make a decision right, before he gets capped for he can either make a decision to say, I want to play for this country, and then that's that. Or, before he gets capped for a game, in an full international, that is a meaningful game, meaning not an exhibition, so it'd be Gold Cup, let's say, or one of those, and then he's got to make a decision. But if you remember with Pepe, who chose the U.S. at, I think, 18 years old, he had an option to not, if he played for the U.S. and then let's say things got really sour and he decided he didn't want to play anymore, then he could wait 4 years and then switch to Mexico.
Wow.
But I don't know how long he would have to. I don't know if there was a limit of how many games he could play for the U.S. and then still make that decision. That part I don't know. But I do remember that if he got capped and then didn't play, he could wait, I think it was 4 years, and then he could switch.
All right, so that's our young man about to turn 16, Zidane Yanez. He's played 7 times combined for Chile and Puerto Rico, has 2 goals and an assist in those 3 youth international matches. And everyone should go on the New York City web, and they did a really nice job with his first interview, as they call it, because his parents are both interviewed. And his father said something near the end, and he got very emotional. And we're both parents and have sons, Roberto. And he said, sometimes I don't praise you enough, meaning talking about his, perhaps suggesting he maybe overly critical over the years or didn't say it enough. And it totally makes sense. If you're a parent, sometimes you get caught in that dilemma. It's not a dilemma. It's just you get caught being more like constructive rather than praising. So it was a really nice moment because I think he understood, wow, this kid's done quite well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
13th
Anything else stand out for you?
13th homegrown. Well, there's other homegrowns in camp. Maximo Carrizo, who also is a dual international. Christian McFarlane, another dual international. Johnny Shore and Drew Baera, who is also in camp. He's at the back. But it's like, I think McFarlane will have the best chance of sticking. Who's backing up Kevin O'Toole at left back right now? And certainly something.
Nobody right now.
So there's a competition between those two. And I said it to you last year, Roberto, watching that kid in training, McFarlane. He's you could just see his growth throughout the year, and he's going to be a tough competitor for that spot. I would look, we had Kevin O'Toole on as a guest, and O'Toole, he's deserved everything that he's obtained, and you could tell he's going to always battle for it. He's always going to be in the mix. He's going to play some role for New York City FC. But McFarlane, man, I wouldn't mind giving him a chance, in some capacity. And we know he can play on the left and right.
Yeah.
But, that's...
we do know that he gets called up to England for basically every international window. So for playing for their youth teams. And
U19s, he's playing U19s, right? That's big time. In U20s, I think.
And so talent he's got. So we'll have to see, it's good. I mean, competition is good. Keeps you on your toes, makes you better.
So nothing else really stands out to me. Although when you
there's
look
something that stands out to me.
Well, striker would still be.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Monsef Bakrar, who's averaged a goal every 4 or 5 games in his career, and that's kind of the way it went last year. And again, the hope is that he can make that, 1 out of 3, 1 out of 2.5, be more in that range. Gabe Siegel is back from that loan where he escaped Israel, really, right at the early stages of the war. And that was so fortunate that he got out of there. So he's back at, competing, in that role. Yanez, by the way, is a striker, but he's not going to have a chance to stick at 15 years old or 16. He'll turn 16 at camp unless he does something.
Can you imagine if he does?
That would be
from that point of view.
Yeah, well, that would be crazy. I'm anxious to hear about Malachi Jones from Nick. He's the winger that was their first round draft choice out of Lipscomb in down south. Not many people know much about Lipscomb University, including myself, but I learned a lot more after understanding that Jones was the first draft pick. So go.
Right now, the backup center forward would probably be Alonso Martinez, who got very little chance to show what he could do because he was basically in preseason when he signed for New York City. And I think he only got, like 2-3 games at most and, 10-minute runs. So not much time to show what he could do. But as it stands now, he's the only other player that could play that position unless you're playing with a false 9. And then, that becomes Santi. So, that's what it is. But look, New York City is famous for bringing players in very late in the window. And so we expect more players to come. There has been a rumor, and that's getting stronger and stronger, about a player down for Racing. His name is Agustin Ojeda, who's a 19-year-old who's played left wing, mostly left wing, but some right wing for Racing. He's got 24 games and 3 goals in his senior career for Racing. He had been starting up until December, and for the Licey, started the last 2 games. Actually got a goal and an assist against Belgrano in a 4-1 win. So he's somebody else who might be coming in. And I decided to go and take a look on what were the thoughts in Argentina and by Racing fans about him coming here. So according to Tomás Davila, who is a journalist for ESPN down in Argentina, according to him, that they've already exchanged contract ideas, and that New York City is going to pay $5.5 million for him, and they're going to do it in 2 payments, and they're going to get 90% of the players. So Racing will hold on to 10% of the sell-on. So what I decided to do was take a look to see what the fans thought about this. And the good news for New York City is that a lot of them are really, really pissed. And most of them, like 90% of them, are really, really upset. And thinking more than anything else that New York City got a bargain, that he's terribly undervalued. And that's the basic sentiment from dozens of comments that I read from Racing fans on Twitter. So
how about
hoping that New York City got a very decent player.
Well, how about the comments from our own Matty Lawrence, who we know?
Well, I wanted you to go there because that's that balances out a little bit.
Well, Matty's interesting because he does a lot of Argentinian games on another network. There's times where we'll travel and he won't be able to go out to dinner with us because he has to go do an Argentinian match. So he saw Racing games quite a bit last year. And the way he put it, and look, everybody knows Matty is a hard critic. But he said, Ojeda did not stand out in any of the games that he did. Didn't say he was a poor player. He just said he didn't stand out, and that he thought Julian Fernandez. He also did games with Julian Fernandez, who's part of New York City now. He said Fernandez was more of an impact than Ojeda in his experience watching those 2 in particular. So that's just his report. And I'll tell you what, Matty has come back. We've heard a lot about Argentina players from Matty, and he's usually got a good judge of it. But again, he wasn't saying he's a poor player. He was suggesting, well, how much do you pay for this guy? And we'll see. First of all, it's got to be consummated. And so you're seeing reports that it is a done deal. Is that right, Roberto?
No, not that it's a done deal, but they're coming close to a done deal.
Okay,
it'll be a done deal when New York City announces it.
And he's a winger.
They announce it.
So that'll be
he's
5.
A winger, primarily left wing, can play on the right.
So that's 5 wingers that will be in
Wolf
camp.
is based, by the way, Wolf only played on the left based on things that I'm seeing in Transfer Market and FOTMob.
Well, you see, Wolf is not on that roster. Let's say the Ojeda deal is consummated. That would be 6 wingers in preseason. So just tuck that one away. All right, get rid of that roster. Thank you very much, Shane.
Well, I mean, and yet 6 wingers, 1 center forward.
No,
they got to fill that, right? They got to fill that position.
Well, you're not even giving Gabe Siegel a chance.
Okay, sorry, too. I forgot. I apologize, Gabe.
You should, Gabe, if you're watching, that was Roberto, not me, man.
He knows the difference, by the way. He knows the difference.
Does he?
Yes.
He's a smart kid. Hey, there's a new place to send your kids for soccer training, Roberto. It's called the La Fabrique Academy. Let's look and see who's heading this up. Oh, my gosh. This one popped up yesterday. Unbelievable. Maxime Chenot coming back to the city, or already back in the city, it looks like.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's just going to start it and then go back and play in France, or I have no idea. But at least he's starting this up over here, and he loves the city, obviously. So if he can put an academy over here, so that's good. La Fabrique, I would presume, is the factory.
It is. It translates into two things: made in France, and a building where certain things are manufactured, which is what you said.
That would be a factory.
Huh?
That would be a factory, yes.
Okay.
My Spanish comes in handy.
I no, it does, because I was curious as to hold. I'm looking for a tip of the day. You know that I put the tip of the day out, right, Roberto?
Yes, I'm on Instagram constantly. Yes,
Instagram, Twitter, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Well, my most recent tip of the day, and I think this goes along with Maxime Chenot: be the central defender who can provide headed clearances on the defensive side, exceptional for Chenot, and finish offset pieces in the air on the attacking side. It's two different techniques. Learn them and work on them. That was my suggestion. And how
often do we see defensemen go up, head the ball, and it goes over the bar?
Well, Maxime Chenot.
Sorry, he's not the only one. No, he's not the only one.
It's
very common because, as you say, it's two different techniques. When you're when you're trying to score, you got to head down. When you're trying to clear, you're heading up.
All right. So Chenot back in town. Wonderful. All right, let's go kick it around, Roberto. Former New York City FC Academy product, Gio Reyna, in the news. He's in the news a lot.
Yes.
And now he's in the news. Here's what the sporting director at Borussia Dortmund said, because this is from Soccer America. So the figure is that the Gio is going to be out. Where does he end up? That's what all the discussion is now. But check out the second paragraph from the sporting director at Dortmund, where he indicated empathy with Reyna's discontent, but also added in a Sky 90 interview, it doesn't help to whine. So Gio Reyna whined at the World Cup. He has whined at Dortmund. Look, I don't know the young man. We saw him play a little bit. We saw him come in and do some incredible things with the first team as a 15-year-old, just to kick it around in training. Claudio Reyna was the former sporting director for New York City FC, and we've known Claudio a long time, and we know there's been that dilemma there. You could use the word whine again, and he's now currently, as far as I know, out of football, because of that. And the thing that I'm qualifying it, Roberto, because I've just got to say, the kid's got to grow up. Come on, man.
No, but I agree 100%. I mean, that's his biggest 2 interests he's got: one, growing up; 2, staying healthy. And they've both affected him in a very bad way, right? As you would expect. The reason he's not starting in Dortmund is because he came off major injuries, right? That he either got there or with the U.S. national team. And he wound up losing his place, and the guy who was in front of him has been playing better. I mean, and that's what it is. And now things got even worse for him because Dortmund signed Jordan Sancho, right? Because Jordan Sancho couldn't get along at Manchester United. And so he's been loaned out to Dortmund, where he used to play. And so now he's probably going to be ahead of Reyna in the pecking order. Or maybe one of the reasons they got him is because they're going to ship Reyna someplace. But yeah, the whining's got to stop. You can't control injuries. That happens. You can definitely control your attitude. You can definitely, and I understand the frustration. But everybody goes through the same thing, especially when you're young. And you've got to be able to handle that. You've got to have the maturity. And, sometimes I guess, maybe you need, coaches to make you a better player physically. And maybe you need a mental coach or a psychologist to teach you how to be better mentally. And that is accepting what your role is, trying to fight for a better role, but keeping your mouth shut and let your actions on the field in training and when you get into games do the talking. Everything else is, hey, I've got to play better. I've got to do better. Every time I get on the field, I've got to show the coach that I deserve to be there. That's it. That's it.
Yeah.
And do your job.
I met somebody recently who coached Gio as a U12. So this is years ago, spent a lot of time with him and said he was kind of a handful at that time. And let it be known that, that sometimes an attitudinal player, that's what makes them great. That's part of something that, but when that word whine is used, I mean, it's really, it's distressing.
He's got to back it up better than he has, basically. Because if Zlatan Ibrahimovic did the same thing, everybody be listening. But Zlatan's backed it up. Zlatan's earned the right to say something like that. Gio has not earned that right. Not yet. Not by a long shot. For as talented as he is, and we know how talented he is, he deserves to play in a top team in the top leagues in Europe. He deserves to play in Germany in a top team, which he does for the most part. Or he could play in England, or he can play in Spain, or he can play in France, if you consider France a top league, and he can, or Italy. But the situation isn't good. And sometimes you run into coaches who don't help you. Look at the situation that Christian Pulisic was in last year at Chelsea, right, with Thomas Tuchel. It just didn't work out. Coach didn't like him as much as maybe he should have. Didn't put him in positions to succeed. He goes to AC Milan, and he's killing it in AC Milan. He's killing it. He was player of the month in Italy. Sometimes you need a change of venue, a change of coach, change of airs, and that changes everything for you. And I look at somebody like Gio, and as much as I love Borussia Dortmund and everything that they do and how they go about their business of bringing up young kids and selling them for a lot of money, developing them, making them great players, I think at this point now, at the situation that he's in, it's time to go someplace else. I'd love to see him in Spain. I think Spain would be a great league for him. I'd love to see him in Italy as well. It'd be interesting to see him in England. But I think that maybe the styles might be better for him in Spain or in Italy, but we'll see where he winds up. And I just hope he doesn't wind up going to a team like Nottingham Forest or something like that, where there's like that much pressure to stay into the Premier League. And, you've got all that pressure, and all of a sudden you're the golden boy coming in, and a lot of people see you as a savior. Yeah, well,
I just don't.
And so I don't want that situation for him.
Yeah, I think Spain and Italy. I think you hit that accurately in terms of styles. And I will. The other thing I always want to qualify with the Reynas is that they were dealt such a tragic blow. His brother passed away, and I always look back on that. So it's very. It's hard for me to be harsh on the Reynas, but the way the World Cup went was really unfortunate, and then this latest. I just I hope he learns from it and grows from it, because he's an important cog to the U.S. men's national team, and he's got to figure out how to work with Greg Berhalter. To me at this point, it's not Berhalter's, it's not his job now to just keep nurturing this relationship. No, the player needs to respond to the coaching, and again, not on the inside. Not sure how all that's going, but
he started the games that he came back, right? So he came in and he was given a starting assignment, and he played well, and that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, but we don't know how it's really.
You just want more. You want more of that, and let the personal stuff go. And let's say this: all the criticism that we're heaping on him is because we want to see him succeed. We want to see him bloom and become and fulfill that enormous potential that he has. You want him to be an all-time great player for the U.S. national team, somebody who in 2026 is going to be primarily responsible for the U.S. getting to wherever they get to, in a good sense. So that's what we want for him. We want him to succeed, and we're rooting for him. We just want to see him get a chance to do it by not getting in his own way. And that's what seems to be happening way too often.
Now, another guy that is often accused of being a whiner is Jose Mourinho. And he was sacked over the weekend by AS Roma. So this is a Roma supporter posted this. And then I have a great friend in Canada, Marco Masucci, who's a great coach. And he follows the Roma. He's AS Roma blood. And he sent this to me because it was like they've signed one quality player in the past 5 transfer windows, yet they're a top 10 UEFA ranked team. They're ranked number 9 in the UEFA standings. And, you know, a lot is said about Jose. And here's another example of the supporters not particularly pleased with the ownership group, which is led by an American, Dan Friedkin. He is the American owner, went to Georgetown University. And so there's these billboards along the highways around Italy and Rome. And so Mourinho's out. I've always loved Jose. I didn't love the Tottenham docuseries. I think it was on Netflix. I didn't love him in that. But Roberto, really quickly, he brought Chelsea to Rutgers University, where I was coaching, to prepare for one of those summer series games. And so I went to 3 consecutive days of him running training sessions. And to this day, I use some of the things because it was all about the 4-3-3 at that time. So whether it was a warm-up activity or a pattern or something, I was really intrigued. So I've used stuff from Jose. There's like 57 different exercises within the 3 days, and it was really cool with me to be able to witness that. But I do remember talking to Ronnie Dyla, asking, "Hey, did you see the Tottenham series?" And he said, "Yeah, he basically said, I don't like Jose. I don't like his style. I don't like the way he goes about things." You know, Ronnie's completely
right. That's his problem.
Yeah.
That's his big problem. That's why he wears out his welcome very quickly. That's why. If you look, see where he's lasted more than 2 years. It doesn't. It just wears out. He comes in and he makes a positive change, and you know all the things he does because he's a brilliant mind. And then after that, he winds up losing the locker room because it becomes to a point where they just can't deal with him anymore. And he's somebody who really doesn't learn, right? He's the one, right? He's the chosen one.
He is. Now, a super nice guy is Giorgio Chiellini. And how about that? He's still in MLS. He was hired as an assistant coach, a player development coach, love the title, for LAFC. So Chiellini, he retired recently, right at the end of the season, and now he's back with LAFC as a coach. So I guess he likes LA.
I guess the LA winters suit him well.
Yeah, I bet. And then here's the we both saw this yesterday, and Brian Scaretta, he put it the best regarding Richie Williams being I don't want to say rehired, but on the bottom you see the New England Revolution 2 put out that tweet announcing an updated coaching staff. Nowhere, unless you open it up and read through it, do you see Richie Williams' name. Now, the reason that's kind of important is that Williams was in the middle of this Bruce Arena stuff last year. Bruce Arena getting suspended, and now I guess he has received permission from Don Garber that he could go back into the league and coach for inappropriate behavior or to this day have no idea.
Accusation of.
Yes. And Richie Williams was at when Kurt Onalfo came on at the press conference announcing Arena had departed. The 2 assistants, Shalry Joseph and I can't remember the other one right now, were essentially sacked along with Bruce. But Richie Williams, so where's Richie? Well, he's still with us, and it's undefined his role. That was a long time ago. Well, now it's been defined. He's going to be the head coach of New England Revolution 2.
They had told the players 2 weeks ago that this was happening, and so now they finally announced it. It's really weird. I mean, I haven't.
And the players, Roberto, didn't the players have a big what we have read is that the players had a pretty big issue with Williams, the senior players, the first team players.
Right, and which is why he came in as the interim, replacing Reyna. Okay. Right. And then I think he had like a win, a tie, and 4 losses. And then the players were not happy. And then he got replaced and somebody else finished the rest of the season. It's interesting. When he coached on his own, I don't remember any place where he might have succeeded. I remember, I don't have the details. I just have the memory about him being in charge of the U17s for, I forget which period of time. And the team was horrific under him. Just totally underachieved. I mean, it was alarming how poorly that team played. And I don't remember any place else where he's coached and he does well. Now, the thing that also is alarming is that, so maybe he's a great assistant, okay? Because Bruce Arena isn't going to take somebody who isn't somebody who's going to help. And he was Bruce's right-hand man for a long time.
Right.
Bruce had to sever his right hand, basically, because Richie, based on what we've heard, seems to have turned on Bruce at some point during that New England Revolution, the time that Bruce was there, and hence why everything happened, or at least the management finding out about whatever. So it seemed to be that Richie had turned on him, and they've, absolutely,
and this is just all. It's pretty much conjecture on our part, but it's just little things that have trickled out from camp. But will we ever know the true story? We're not sure. Maybe not. Maybe Bruce will write another book someday. It looks like unless he gets hired by Minnesota, he's going to go another year without coaching, though. Like I said, Garber has given him permission. There was some word about DC United. They hired Troy Lesane. But what we heard from DC United is that Bruce had contacted them about coming back into the fray. So it's will Bruce be back now? And if not, I
somebody's
suspect
going to hire him. If he doesn't get hired, okay, in this round, at some point, somebody's going to get fired and he's going to get hired. He's too good. He's too good a manager for him to go without working, for some team not to want him and be able to improve with somebody like him. And so far, I mean, the 2 biggest names out there that haven't been hired, he's one, and Gio Savarese is the other.
And, Minnesota is the only team left that needs a coach. And I wonder, well, first I thought, how about Jose Mourinho? I would love him to come to MLS. I would love that.
That would be fun.
He would put Dome Torrent's complaints to shame. I mean, he would that would be interesting. And
press conferences would definitely be fun.
And that's where Khaled El Ahmad, formerly of the City Football Group, is now the sporting director, but he's not there yet, or maybe he's arriving very shortly. It's close to him being involved with the hiring process to get a permanent coach for Minnesota. All right, best moment of the week as we close this, Roberto.
All right.
Now I'm going to go to the NFL. And a reporter asking Todd Bowles, former coach of my favorite team, Jets. Of course, he couldn't get it done there, but now he's deep into the playoffs for Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay Bucks coach Todd Bowles. So he's in a presser. Tampa Bay is playing at Detroit this weekend. And a reporter asked Todd Bowles, how is he preparing his team for the frigid conditions in Detroit for that playoff game? The Lions have played indoors for the past 48 years in a temperature-controlled environment. And Bowles handled it adroitly. He did a good job with it. He was just like, well, we play indoors. So then he kind of took it to like, well, maybe walking into the stadium we'll take extra precaution.
It happens, right? Somebody didn't do their homework. Yeah, they played in Pontiac, Michigan for a long time in the Pontiac Silverdome. Which is famous in soccer.
Yes.
Because of the U.S. Playing their game there versus Switzerland, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a 1-1 tie with an Eric Winalda free kick goal.
Nice.
And
that might have, Roberto, that might have been the first time grass was put over turf here in the States. I mean, that's
they did have grass in the stadium. What they also they did have grass. What they didn't have was air conditioning, and it was over 90 degrees, and the temperature inside the stadium, I believe, was like over 120. And it's not one of those removable domes, open domes that you have. So it was no place for the heat to escape.
Wow.
The conditions
were
horrific.
It was a premature preparation for Qatar and Saudi Arabia, maybe,
If you ever speak to Eric, ask him about that game. Right. Okay. He or Alexi Lalas, Marcelo Balboa, ask them about that game because the conditions were, the first game ever played in a dome in a World Cup, and it was horrific because no air conditioning. So now they play in Ford Field, which is a beautiful stadium in downtown Detroit.
All right, man. Well, we get a chance to talk to Nick Cushing on Friday. So when we come back at you next week, there'll be some preseason, maybe more thorough preseason stuff that we could share with you. So for Roberto Abramowitz, I'm Glenn Crooks. Thanks for being here with us on NYCFC Views.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast NYCFC Views on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.